Sound check. Oh hey, what's going on everybody? My name's Kobe Scrubby and welcome to the complete lore of Resident Evil. Thanks so much for coming to hang out with me today. I should say us today. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoy the stream, don't forget to hit the like button for me. Leave me your thoughts on it in the comments, and you can also subscribe to the channel for more streams and other videos. Dishonored Track 6, what's going on, man? Thanks for stopping by. We're just getting started here. Before we get started, if you guys don't know already, I always say at the beginning of the stream, I do have a private satisfactory server. If you would like to come and join and play along with us, all you have to do is go to the link in the description for my Patreon. Become a Patreon for $5 a month. We'll get you unlimited access to the server and to our private Discord chat that we use while we're playing on the server. If you don't want to do that, you can join the regular Discord for free. But if you do become a Patreon, make sure you send me a message on Discord, let me know so we can get you hooked up with all the server information and get you on there as soon as possible. So, tonight what we're going to be doing is Umbrelladoc has provided a playlist of 5 videos. We're not going to get through all of them tonight. We'll probably get through 1, maybe 2, depending on how much we stop and how much we stop to discuss what's going on. And it is the complete lore of all the Resident Evil games. So we're just going to watch it. We're going to learn some stuff. I'm going to learn a lot because what I do know of Resident Evil, having played all the games except for 6 and Revelations 1 and 2, Umbrelladoc always telling me something new every day that I had never heard of in Resident Evil universe. So let me go ahead and bring him in here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Well, what's going on, man?
What is up? What's going on?
Well, I'm just enjoying some Resident Evil 7 save room audio right now. I am trying to figure out... Okay, so we're going to have to see how this screen sharing works. If it's showing you my browser and when I change tabs and stuff, if you'll still be able to see it, or if it's just that specific tab. I'm not really sure. So here's the one I got right now.
Okay, I see the computer desk and, well, the typewriter and lamp and hat. And
can you hear the music?
I can.
Okay, good. Good. Okay, so everything is working. We've already got Dishonored Track 6. I'm sorry, Dishonest Track 6. I keep thinking Dishonored like the game. Dishonest Track 6. So, I was talking about what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at this playlist of videos and discussing Resident Evil lore, and I'm going to learn a lot. And I'm sure everybody's going to learn something. I have a treat for us that I found. But I am going to wait until we get into this a little ways because I don't want it to be at the beginning of the video. And then, even then, if it gives me trouble, I'm going to have to edit it out. It's not that bad. It's just... Resident Evil people are going to love it, especially Resident Evil 4 people, I think. But it's kind of on that line of... acceptable for YouTube, even though it is on YouTube, and I don't think it's age restricted. So, we'll take a look at that later. I did find something cool here that I would love to do, but it's 13 hours. So we're not going to do it now.
Oh my.
But it's all... Can you still see my tab even though I switched?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is all of the Resident Evil cutscenes. Oops, sorry. I was trying to pause this. All of the cutscenes from Resident Evil 0 all the way up to Village.
Oh,
no,
wow.
maybe it's only up to 7. Really?
Yeah, it might be. Yep,
Oh,
it's
wow.
up to 7.
And they don't have any Village in here. Oh, wow, and it's still 13 hours. But it's basically all the cutscenes put together made into a movie that you can watch. And it'll just show you... I wish it wasn't so long. I really want to watch that too, but... okay, let me turn this down a little bit. So, I got this right here. Here's our playlist. The Lore of Resident Evil. And unless anyone's got anything, we'll just get started.
If you enjoy this content, please like and comment to feed the algorithm god. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon.
This video includes spoilers. Spoiler alert. So...
Spoiler alert!
Uh-oh, I hit the wrong button.
Oh no!
If you enjoy
That was
this
an
content,
accident.
please like and comment to feed the algorithm god. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon.
Here we go. Spoiler alert to everyone who has not finished all the Resident Evil
Spanish
games.
flu is estimated
You're
to have
gonna learn
infected
stuff
1/3 of the world's population
didn't know.
and killed 50 million people between 1918 and 1920. Entire families, communities, towns wiped out. We will focus, for now, on one particular mountain village in Eastern Europe which fell victim to the Spanish flu. This
So if you want to pause and say something, let me know, and I'll just pause it.
I will. They're talking about the Spanish flu, and they actually told a true fact about the Spanish flu wiping out 1/3 of the world's population. So they really fed off of, like, actual events that happened. And then they go into the fictional part of Resident Evil lore with it.
Killed 50 million between 1918 and 1920.
families, communities, towns wiped out. We will focus, for now, on one particular mountain village in Eastern Europe which fell victim to the Spanish flu. This village has a rich and perplexing history kept mysterious through lack of records. It was a border stronghold once occupied by an ancient people who left ruins, ceremony sites, murals, and symbols in their wake. The purpose of them left unknown. The creators of these grounds left no traces of their intent, but perhaps intentions will become more apparent as we proceed. This little village was considered by more Puritan forces as heretical, but attempts to spread outsider religions here never really succeeded. In the very early 1900s, before the Spanish flu began to ravage the world, a woman named Miranda moved out to this strange mountain village, eventually giving birth to a daughter she named Eva. But when the Spanish flu came to the village, tragedy befell all within.
Hello,
The
Drunkle.
dead piled up,
Yeah,
and
what's going
Miranda
on?
did
Good
not
evening, man.
escape the terror unscathed.
Good to see you
Her
here.
beloved daughter, no more than 10 years old, died of the virus. Miranda was broken by this loss. After her Eva was put into the ground, Miranda walked into the wilds to a cave where she planned to end her own life out of sorrow, but something was in that cave.
What is it? What's going on, Drunkle? Thanks for stopping by. Does Drunkle have a lot of stuff to say about Resident Evil?
Drunkle knows pretty much almost the same amount of lore as I know in RE, because we talk about it, and whenever I was playing through 8 for the first time, me and him were catching on to the exact same things.
Okay.
And we had a pretty good hunch before we found out in 8 that Ethan was dead. Like, we knew before it happened.
I was gonna
So we
say,
had a pretty good idea.
if any of you guys want to get in on the voice chat and get in on the conversation and stuff, if you join the Discord server, we can switch over to like the lobby that you guys can all join and we can talk, so we don't have to, because chat is, at least 10 seconds behind. So Just doing riddles with Doc and prepping some stuff to do on stream on either Twitch or YouTube for the Lovecraft thing I'm planning. Ooh. Oh, yeah. I want to see that.
Lovecraft.
But yeah, if anyone wants to get in voice chat and contribute too, it's not just through chat. Let me know and we'll get you in there. And we got a Megamycete.
The heart of a fungal root colony which extended throughout the soil beneath the village. Miranda touched the root, and a cascade of knowledge from past lives fell upon her. Memories that spanned centuries from those that had been buried near the village. Those people had been absorbed into the root, their DNA and memories with it, which meant little Eva was stored within the root as well. Miranda did not end her life. Instead, she took an interest in the fungal root and became convinced that she could use it to bring her daughter back to life. She took samples of the fungal root, which became known as the mold, to the surface and found that it could cure illness and injury. Miranda began to preach a sort of pagan propaganda of it, calling it a black god, and she would be its prophet. The village folk had been so terrorized by the Spanish flu that they fell in line quite willingly with this new faith. They took to calling her Mother Miranda instead, and she became a new head figure of the isolated village. For decades, Mother Miranda studied and experimented with the mold, using the residents of the village as test subjects as needed.
So far, what we have is Mother Miranda found the mold, or well, she had a baby, right? And her baby died already?
What she did was she ended up having a daughter named Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And when she had her daughter died from the Spanish flu. And when her daughter died, she went into the cave that Chris went into to end her life. And she found the Megamycete.
Okay.
And when she touched it, like I said, the Megamycete in 8 is like the Borg. It is a single mind.
Okay, yeah.
So all of the past lives and all like centuries of knowledge, when she touched it, flowed into her.
Okay.
As well as the Megamycete. So all the knowledge that went on for centuries prior to her being there, she became like aware of. And that's why everybody started really looking up to her. And that's where she started getting the ideas, wait a minute, if these people can come back and I can see these people, then I can bring my daughter back too.
Okay. Yeah, so she got all the knowledge of centuries. So she really actually had the knowledge, and then she got infected with the mold as well.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, I can bring my daughter back with this. Okay. I think I missed that her daughter died from the Spanish flu. I knew her daughter died.
That's in one of the notes. And Evelyn is actually looks like her daughter.
Yeah.
So they made a clone of her daughter and they named it Evelyn. But Evelyn was kind of, well, it'll tell you, Evelyn kind of went off the chain and she was a failure in the studies.
Okay.
So she didn't approve of the way Umbrella handled trying to bring her daughter back. So she decided to take it into her own hands.
Okay. Welcome to join. Are you going to do the Lovecraft thing tonight or is it another day? Because after we finish this tonight, I'm going to have to go to bed so I can go to work tomorrow. But if it's another day, I'd love to come check it out. I'm not that knowledgeable for Resident Evil. I only studied Albert Wesker and the original stuff for it before the new lore with 8 and the like. So yeah, I just tend to think too much. All right.
Her eternal obsession was bringing her daughter back to life, but to do this, a suitable host would be needed for Eva to be placed into. To some varying degree, all of the inhabitants of the village were infected with the mold over the years. It kept them obedient and complacent under the order of Mother Miranda. Their black god was revered and worshipped. Mother Miranda was a part of their prayers. It was just their way of life. As the years passed on, Miranda used the mold on herself to remain unaging. At least one person was known to have eventually assisted Mother Miranda in
That's interesting. So Mother Miranda used the mold to not age, but when they made Evelyn, she aged super fast.
which is why she was a failure.
Ah, okay.
Her research. In 1951 or thereabout, a young medical student named Oswell E. Spencer became lost in the mountains during a hike and found himself in the company of Mother Miranda. The two studied and worked together on the mold, but it only lasted for a few years. Miranda and Oswell had extremely different ideations when it came to the mold. Miranda wanted it for the resurrection of her daughter. Oswell wished it be used to instigate a new form of human evolution. This difference caused Oswell to leave the village, though he went on to regret not saying goodbye to Mother Miranda. The two remained friendly to one another, and they went on to study and work towards their own life goals. The villagers, however, were not so fortunate. As Miranda's understanding of the mold deepened, so too did her cruel methods. Mother Miranda created something called a Kadu, a roundworm infected with the mold that acted as a parasite. The Kadu created conditions within its host that allowed it to incorporate other DNA into the host. A few examples of that we'll present shortly to make sense of it, but when the Kadu was injected into a subject, one of three things would happen: a horrible death, transformation into something undesirable, or a successful symbiotic relationship was created between the host and the Kadu. The horrible death occurred more often than not. A lesser degree of failure was the subject's transformation into a ghastly beast, such as a lichen or a varkolac. These dangerous creatures were cast out from the village or killed before release.
A Varkolac? What's that?
The lichens.
Okay,
The
just
lichens
another
are
name for it.
another name for the lichens, because a lot of people know lichens by hearing, hey, it's a lichen. But if you heard, hey, it's a varkolac,
Yeah.
well, seeing how nobody knows what a varkolac is, like the creatures in RE8, like the lichen type creatures, are varkolacs. And the vampire type creatures aren't vampires, they're flies.
Okay.
And they feed, granted, yes, they feed off blood like vampires do, but they're flies. Because anyone who knows anything about vampires knows vampires do not cast a reflection.
Yeah.
And Lady D casts a reflection. And
Okay.
so do her daughters.
Huh. Oh, that's why her daughters are like swarms of bugs because they're flies.
It's also why they don't like the cold.
Okay.
The cold air is what weakened them and prevented them from dispersing. Because they have to nest together to stay warm.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird because cold doesn't necessarily affect vampires because they're cold
No.
anyway.
Exactly.
Okay. Drunkle says it will be later. I still ain't full strength with the surgery. Can't sit for hours. Cool. Yeah, just let me know. I'd love to be a part of anything Lovecraft. I want to learn.
You know for a fact I'll definitely let you know whenever he does.
Cool.
Because
Yeah,
he'll probably have me in it too.
for sure. All right.
And then there were the successful Kadu implants, where the host would take on the traits and abilities of foreign DNA placed into them.
There's the flies.
For example,
Okay.
the beings who would become known as the Four Lords, and please forgive my pronunciations: Alcina Demetresque, Donna Beneviento, Salvatore Moreau, and Carl Heisenberg. All four of these beings were infected with the Kadu at varying parts of their lives and developed superhuman abilities as a result, stories that we will delve into another time.
I want to learn about Heisenberg because everything in Resident Evil basically is like a biological mutation, like Moreau, for example, or Nemesis. But Heisenberg just kind of magically got magneto powers.
No, not magically.
Well, I mean, just like
whenever he got infected with the Kaidu, he got infected and he was swarmed by electric eels.
Oh.
And the electricity that started flowing through his body with the Kaidu in him ended up heightening the electromagnetic fields in his body, therefore giving him the ability to manipulate magnetism.
So
because he was able to control the magnetic fields around him.
is that
It wasn't a
information?
superpower. They might dive into it a little bit in this, but that's information because when Heisenberg got infected with the Kaidu, it was almost like, I want to say it was like a suicide attempt, but it may not have been because
Mhm.
he just wanted to end it and he wanted to get out. Like, you can tell he never wanted to be a part of Mother Miranda's whole scheme of trying to bring her daughter back.
Mhm.
Like, he wanted nothing to do with any of that. And so seeing how he wanted out and he didn't want nothing to do with it, he ended up pretty much jumping in a lake and getting swarmed by electric eels, and that's how he got his ability. And he decided to
They
use his knowledge and power to create his mechanical army to go against Mother Miranda.
they don't talk about that in the game, do they?
They talk about it in his book. Like, if you read his book in Mother Miranda's cave where Mia's being held,
Mhm.
they talk about him being swarmed with electric eels, or they
Mm.
mention something about electric eels, and whenever he got infected with the Kaidu, it enhanced his, like, magnetic. Well, not
Okay.
magnetic, but his electrical force.
I
So the electricity from the eels enhanced his ability to control his electromagnetic waves to actually do what he was doing.
I must have missed that because this is the first time I'm hearing that. Or I didn't read it, or I read it and I didn't comprehend it or something. Okay.
It's plausible because I had to read it twice because I was like, wait, what?
And while the four lords became mighty in their own ways and were physiologically extremely varied, none of them were considered viable candidates as hosts for the rebirth of Eva. Therefore, in the eyes of Mother Miranda, they were all failures.
Chapter 11. Why is it Chapter 11?
Chapter 2.
Miranda's
Oh.
experiments and discoveries continued ever on and on, but in other parts of the world, echoes of her discovery bellowed, namely through the work of her once pupil, Oswell E. Spencer. What did he go on to do? Well, I'm so glad you asked. In 1962, Oswell commissioned an eccentric architect named George Trevor to build him a mansion in the Arklay Mountains near the famed Raccoon City.
We were just learning about that in your
Okay.
stream the other day.
Yes, in my stream the other night, I brought up Trevor. I can never remember his first name. And George Trevor, he built the Arklay Mansion. And whenever he built the Arklay Mansion, he was also working on something else. And this is going to go into detail like what I did with telling you about, him sending his wife and his daughter to the manor, and then him showing up a couple days later or a couple months later or whatever, and finding out that everything that happened. This goes into detail with that. So I'm going to let the video do its job and explain it.
Okay. And I always welcome people for learning about Lovecraft. I would love to help you learn about the Mountains of Madness and everything else. I'm actually in the progress of listening to the Mountains of Madness while I'm at work, and I think I've got like an hour left. It's like a 4-hour. I just found it on YouTube. It's an audio book on YouTube. It's like 4 hours, so I got about an hour left of it. So I'll work on that this week.
George Trevor accepted the contract and began designing a mansion that was full of mysterious traps and unusual puzzles. However, it would take a number of years before the project in the Arklay Mountains was actually complete. In the meantime, Oswell set his attentions to another part of the world, Africa. You see, in the 1800s, a fellow named Henry Travis undertook the venture of exploring Africa. His family owned the Travis Trading Company. Henry was able to use his wealth to fund the journey, and this man made
Hey, pause real quick.
amazingly detailed...
Okay, this is talking about Africa. Do you remember what game Africa was?
5?
There you go. And that's where the plant, the progenitor.
So I don't remember. I remember almost nothing about 5 because I haven't played it since it came out, and I think
There's
I
like
only
a
played
cave.
it once.
There's a cave that Chris and Sheva go in with all the progenitor plants.
Progenitor, I remember that name.
That's the original source of the T virus.
Okay.
And with the mold and leech DNA, that's how the T virus became solid and stable. But
Okay.
this is going into 5 where Spencer's like, oh, I can use this to enhance this to make a virus so it spreads.
Okay. So basically, Mother Miranda happened first, and now we're going to 5.
Yes.
But we didn't necessarily do 8 first. We just got the backstory of how Mother
What it
Miranda
is-
found the Megamycete.
This is going through the timeline of how the T virus became.
Okay.
Because he needed the progenitor to do the T virus to stabilize it.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, I got to see how though, or why he needed
Well,
it, or
whenever
how
the
it
virus
works.
isn't stable, like you saw what happened to Wesker with
Yeah.
Ouroboros and it not being stable. When a virus isn't stable, it explodes and mutates and does everything else. He was wanting to make a virus that didn't do that because he wanted to evolve humanity,
Okay.
make them more powerful, more survivability. You know, he wanted to enhance the evolution of mankind.
So Mother Miranda wanted to bring her daughter back, and this guy wanted to enhance mankind, and now their research is kind of coming together.
Correct.
All right.
Detailed notes and records of animal life, geography, cultures, traditions, insects, flora, and fauna. Henry Travis spent 34 years roaming Africa. When he finally returned home,
Is
he
this part of the
assembled
game?
a 72-volume set of his discoveries called The Survey of Natural History.
No.
His work was widely discounted and shunned by the scientific community, possibly due to the slandering of his work by one of his older brothers, in an attempt to keep competitor trading companies disinterested in Africa. Henry Travis was heartbroken over this rejection of his passion and life's work, and he died only 2 years after his return home. The Travis Trading Company went on to establish a shipping, resource gathering, and pharmaceutical branch of the company. Using Henry Travis's volumes of work as a guide, the Travis Trading Company exploited the resources and people of Africa. In the 1960s, those 3 divisions were rebranded under one name, Trycell. But Trycell wasn't the only company with an interest in Henry Travis's discoveries in Africa. Oswell E. Spencer and 2 of his good friends and colleagues, Edward Ashford and James Marcus, took interest in something within Henry Travis's research, a flower called the Stairway of the Sun, which was part of the folklore of the Ndipaya people. You see, this trio of men had a bit of an obsession with the concept of eugenics. And according to tales told by the Ndipaya people, consuming this flower either proved fatal or a source of superhuman strength. The Ndipaya constructed dwelling places around the caverns that housed this mysterious flower to protect it and to claim it, though eventually a disaster of some sort forced the Ndipaya out of the caverns, but they did not abandon the lands nor their reverent protection of the flower. It was mentioned as a cultural mythos within the incredulous writings of Henry Travis, but beyond that, it was a secret to the outside world. The Stairway of the Sun was interesting to Oswell Spencer and Edward Ashford, but it was truly the third man, James Marcus, and his assistant, Brandon Bailey, that spearheaded the research. James Marcus hypothesized that the flower contained a virus that could alter DNA, that it was the key to the supposed superhuman abilities told in the stories of the Ndipaya.
Okay, this is interesting because so it either gives you superpowers or it turns you into a monster, basically, right? So
It either kills you or it gives you superhuman powers.
that's almost the same concept as Doom, because they found ancient remains on Mars or something, and it was like an extra set of chromosomes or something. And when you take it, you either become superhuman or you turn into the monsters from Doom. It's kind of the same thing, interesting enough to me. Not the same thing, but it reminded me of that. I don't remember any of this stuff from 5 with the flowers.
Yeah. It's actually, like, the temple that they were showing with the lasers and everything, it's right after that. Because that was the protection. And Trycell, whenever you go in, the Trycell tents looked really old, and I was always, like, curious, why do these look really old? Well, Trycell was formed before Umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of went like, oh, okay. Okay, I get it now. So this was one thing that I was like curious about, but I wasn't 100% sure until I watched the videos.
Man, I'm gonna have to play 5 and when I get done with 4, because I have a couple like screenshots of it in my brain, but I don't remember anything from it. Oh, what year was that? So if 4 was 2005, it must have been like between then and 2008, maybe. For 5?
2008, 2009, and just a heads up for all you RE fans, free downloadable content is going to be available for Resident Evil 8 Spring 2022.
Awesome. So
So
expect
it's going to be coming up within the next few months or a couple months.
that on both of our channels as soon as it comes out.
Oh, absolutely, because they're adding all the cutscenes, like the scenes that were cut from the game.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're doing that, Ada's going to be in it.
Hmm.
As well as possibly running around as maybe old characters. That's what we're hoping. It
Mhm.
may not be a thing, but we may be introduced to Jill again and a couple other old characters,
Man.
and maybe running around as Elena
In the
during
village?
the time of the lycanthropes and everything else coming to effect. So as the Kaidu is spreading, she's running around trying to survive.
Oh man. I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't
it's
wait.
gonna be interesting. Them are just little teasers of what I've found out that may or may not happen. So don't get your hopes up for it. Don't take my word for it. But that's what I've heard so far.
That's kind of my most anticipated thing coming up this year. And there's a lot of
Your
stuff on my
most
wish list.
anticipated. That's my most anticipated.
All right.
In August of 1966, James Marcus and his assistant Brandon Bailey and a small team of staff made it to the caverns where the Stairway of the Sun grew and began to study. For 3 months, they worked around the clock and fought off attacks from the Indipaya. But early December, they finally isolated the virus. It was called the Progenitor Virus, and now they could finally begin to study and understand what this virus was capable of. Something went wrong, though. When the progenitor flower, the Stairway of the Sun, was taken out of Africa, specifically out of that cave, the progenitor virus wasn't present in new blooms. Back in their research labs in Europe, James Marcus and Brandon Bailey could not recreate the conditions necessary for the virus to propagate in new flowers. It was a complete mystery. Nothing worked. Their only source of the virus would have to come from their station in Africa, and getting access to it was exceedingly difficult due to distance, terrain, and hostile locals. It was nearing the spring of 1967, and in the Arklay Mountains near Raccoon City, Spencer Oswell's strange new mansion was nearing completion. Unbeknownst to the architect, George Trevor, Oswell commissioned another building project, this one under the mansion. An underground complex was being built, a lab and supporting stations, so that the study of the progenitor virus could happen on Oswell Spencer's new estate. In the meantime, Oswell convinced James Marcus to move his research to the Spencer family estate in Europe and to maintain absolute secrecy of the progenitor virus and all of his research taking place. Near the end of March in 1967, Oswell Spencer convinced his 2 longtime friends to found a pharmaceutical company with him, which they would call Umbrella. Oswell wrote to his old friend, Mother Miranda, to tell her of his discoveries and that he chose the name Umbrella and its logo in remembrance of the symbols on the cave walls near that old village.
Oh, there you go. So this looks like the umbrella symbol here, and this is in the village.
Yes.
Hmm.
And he got the idea for his corporation from all of that to pay homage to Miranda and everything that they've learned and studied while he was there.
Mhm.
In the fall of 1967, the Arklay Mountain Mansion and its underground labs were completed, but well, there was a problem. George Trevor caught on to the existence of the underground facility, and it was just too risky to let him leave with even that knowledge. So Oswell Spencer invited George Trevor, his wife Jessica, and their teenage daughter Lisa to stay as guests at the mansion, which they graciously agreed to. Jessica and young Lisa arrived at the mansion on November 10th, a few days before George Trevor due to his work obligations. And when George arrived at the mansion on November 13th, Oswell Spencer told him that his wife and daughter had temporarily departed to tend to an ill family member. The two men had a fine meal together that evening, and the following day, Oswell
Shark.
gave George an official tour of the now fully furnished halls of the mansion that he knew oh so well. But what George did not know was that his wife was going to die that very day beneath the mansion, and his daughter was soon to suffer a torturous fate at the hands of Umbrella. Jessica and Lisa became the first human test subjects for the Progenitor Virus. The mother, Jessica, was given a Type A version of the Progenitor Virus, but the virus didn't fuse with Jessica's host cells. She was disposed of by Umbrella personnel on November 13th. Young Lisa was given the Type B version of the Progenitor Virus, and this strain did fuse with the girl's cells, albeit slowly. She was kept alive for further experimentation, but her mind began to descend into nonsensical thought, and she began to lash out using her new physical strength. Umbrella personnel tried to convince Lisa that another woman, one of their staff, was her mother, but even in her cognitive decline, it didn't fool Lisa for long. Her father, George Trevor the architect, roamed the property of the Arklay Mansion for a few days, taking notice of the strange changes that Oswell Spencer had made to the grounds, and the unusual furnishings that he'd chosen for some of the rooms. He was allowed to wander for a few days, but George Trevor was never going to be allowed to leave that forest. On November 20th, a week after his arrival, George made it known that he was going to leave the mansion the following day. Before his departure, while in the company of Oswell Spencer, George Trevor was incapacitated, drugged, and thrown into an inescapable gauntlet of puzzles and mazes. On November 31st, George Trevor accepted his fate when he fell into a pit and found a tombstone with his name on it. He struggled on a little longer, plagued by the knowledge that he had brought his wife and daughter here, that they too were probably suffering a cruel and violent fate. His daughter Lisa survived her infection. She was held in the labs beneath the mansion, chained up, and kept immobile for testing and study.
Okay,
Chapter 3.
so whenever you fight the snake the second time in RE1, which I'm getting close to that point, the hole that you fall in is the same hole that George fell in. Because in that hole is George Trevor's tombstone.
I'm trying to think of what hole that is. I can't think of it.
Second floor, you know where you get the map piece? Second floor map?
In the mansion?
Yeah. I
Mm,
just did that part yesterday, I believe. Where you were like, hey, you can get the map there, because I went to that room to see if the one key unlocked it, and it was a helmet key.
I don't remember
That
it.
room is the room where you fall through the floor, and Barry throws the rope down, and you climb down, and he lets go of the rope. And
Man.
he's like, let me go get another rope or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that, but I can't picture
Yep.
it.
Yeah, it's the checkerboard floor room. That's the room where he fell through the floor and found his own grave.
Drunkle says, I recommend one audiobook if you get the chance at work. After listening to Mountains of Madness, listen to Dunwich Horror. Okay. I'll look that one up next. I have also listened to Shadow over Innsmouth. That was the first one I listened to, so I didn't really have a lot of information when I listened to that one. And now that I've played The Sinking City, I know what the Innsmouthers look like. All right.
Umbrella Pharmaceuticals was officially founded the following year, in the first half of 1968. Oswald Spencer was the driving force behind its official creation. James Marcus, the man who had originally traveled to Africa and isolated the progenitor virus, was rather agitated at the apparent greed of Oswald and was a reluctant participant in Umbrella's founding. If anything, it was a distraction unworthy of his time, but he was at the mercy of Oswald's financial backing, so he conceded. Umbrella would operate as a legitimate pharmaceutical company, but in secret, the progenitor virus would be studied and developed as a bioweapon for the U.S. military to keep the cash flow coming in. And while this new game of money and infamy began to gain steam, James Marcus and his assistant Brandon Bailey ran into an issue. They were running low on the progenitor virus. As it could only be cultivated in that far-off cave in Africa, another mission was required. Oswald Spencer stepped in, and rather than allow the extremely valuable James Marcus to risk his life on another adventure, Oswald hired a large team of mercenaries to remove the native Indipaya from the area and secure it for an umbrella establishment to be created there. The assistant Brandon Bailey returned to Africa with the mercenaries to oversee the steady production and shipping of the progenitor virus. Eventually, the Indipaya were driven away, and the foundations for the Umbrella Africa Research Center were laid. Access to the progenitor virus was no longer an issue. Meanwhile, James Marcus went on to head another new facility, this one in the Arklay Mountains in America, near Raccoon City, the Umbrella Executive Training School, a place of learning for young talent who could be molded into research and leadership positions within Umbrella. It was outfitted with everything academically needed to achieve this, including state-of-the-art laboratories. There, Marcus would act as the director, but in secret, he would head research into the progenitor virus. But there is a third member of the founding trio that we've not really spoken of. We know some about Oswald Spencer and James Marcus, but what of the last man, Edward Ashford? Well, for the most part, the virologist Edward Ashford seemed to just have gone along with the planning of Oswald, a like-minded man that fit in as a founder of Umbrella. His departure in the story comes at about the time James Marcus took his position as director of the Umbrella Executive Training School in mid-1968. Edward Ashford and his son Alexander took to their own studies in Europe. There was some competitive discourse between the founders of Umbrella, but in July, a most devious plot was set into action. Oswald Spencer ensured that a supposed accident would take place in Edward Ashford's own lab, an accident that would result in Edward becoming infected with the progenitor virus. Of course, this killed the third founding member of Umbrella. How tragic. Edward's son, Alexander, took over his father's studies as the new head of the ultra-wealthy Ashford family. Alexander worked as a researcher for Umbrella, but while his father was a virologist, Alexander was a geneticist. He lacked the skills to produce results in regards to the progenitor virus, and feared that his lack of ability would lead to the Ashford family being disgraced and Oswald Spencer taking full control over Umbrella. Alexander discovered genetic code within the virus that stimulated intellect, but it wasn't enough. The discovery was promising, but he didn't want to give it over to Umbrella. In early 1969, Alexander petitioned Umbrella for the creation of a new research facility, this one in Antarctica, based out of an abandoned mine. His proposal was a success, and by the year's end, Alexander had his own research facility at the edge of the world. Done in secret so as not to alert Oswald Spencer to his intentions, Alexander's studies of the progenitor virus now continued there in conjunction with cloning. This project was codenamed Veronica, after a long-dead matriarch of the Ashford family.
Code Veronica is
there
another
you
game.
go. Yep, that's where that comes into play.
Man, I may have played that back when I was like, dude, that would have been like 2000 even or earlier. Man, I
Yeah,
should.
the Veronica in Welcome to Raccoon City, they have a file called the Ashford twins. Like everything Ashford worked with were clones.
Okay.
Like they were all clones, so he wasn't initially doing the virus on random people. He was doing it on clones.
So I got right here release dates. Resident Evil 1, 1996. Code Veronica, 2000.
Yes.
Gaiden, what is that? Okay, so there's some in here that I don't know.
There's some in there that are really, really bad, and they only came out for, like, say, the Nintendo, what is it, Switch? Not the
Yeah,
Switch, the Game Boy Advance,
Game
or...
GameCube or
Yeah. Well, no, it's handheld.
oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the problem with this is there are a lot of these that I haven't played because the game was so bad. And it never got to anything that I could play it on.
Dude, I played Survivor and I hated it. Like, I'm like, why are you giving me unlimited ammo in a survival game?
Okay. I just wanted to bring that up in case we're talking about something that we want to know when the game came out. I have them all right here now. Okay, so I don't know if I played Code Veronica in 2000. I would have been just starting high school. So I don't know that I was actively keeping up on playing video games
I
at the
was
time.
graduating high school and I played it.
I think. Wait, let's see. I think my girlfriend graduated in 2002. So we're all close here. Okay.
For the most part, yeah, but
Using
you make
the
me feel old
DNA of
sometimes.
Veronica Ashford and genetic code from the Progenitor Virus that he'd discovered, Alexander eventually created twin clones, Alfred and Alexia, born in 1971.
Oh, I remember
Project
them.
Veronica was a success, and while the boy Alfred proved to be intelligent, it was Alexia who excelled academically. For most of her childhood, the girl would remain hidden away in Antarctica.
I must have played it because I remember them from something.
Now, let's halt here for a moment to talk about
Okay, I halted.
another scheme of Oswell
Not
Spencer.
funny.
While James Marcus acted as director of the Umbrella Training Facility and the son of Edward Ashford studied cloning in Antarctica, Spencer undertook his own projects. Let's talk about one in particular, the Wesker Plan. At some point in the late 1960s or the early 1970s, Umbrella started to target children born to particularly intelligent parents. These children were taken from their parents and put into controlled environments.
Now, 1960s, 1970s. Okay, the Wesker Plan. Now, the Wesker Plan, okay, 1960s, 1970s. The outbreak in Raccoon City, Wesker is undercover as a RPD, as a STARS member. Now, he's probably in his 20s there, okay? In RE5, it's almost like he never ages.
He always looks the same age that I remember.
Yes. Now, he becomes beefier, like he becomes stronger, but he always looks young. And there is a reason behind that. And that reasoning is Ashford.
So there's...
Ashford is the reasoning behind that.
The thing that I'm having trouble with right now is there's so many people in almost all this, so many people I haven't heard of, and almost all this information we're getting now is stuff that I don't know. So not only is it stuff that I have never heard of, there's a bunch of names that I don't know, and I can't keep them all straight. So I'm not 100%, taking this in at the moment.
What are you, like, okay, so everyone knows Spencer. Spencer is the #1 name, the big kahuna of Umbrella Corporation. Marcus, he's kind of like, he's that outside source, that outside character that kind of did stuff like in the shadows, but he trained Wesker.
See,
Okay.
if you would have asked me who Spencer was, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But now that you say that, I remember the name, but I couldn't tell you anything, any details about him.
Yeah, like a lot of people, whenever Resident Evil first came out, a lot of people called it the Arkley Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
I called it the Spencer Estate
Okay.
because a lot of the books were about Spencer this, Spencer that, and it's like, okay, so Spencer's like this big kahuna, the main guy. He's he's the guy we're looking for, And now Ashford came in like you learn a lot about Ashford in the Paul Anderson films
Mm-hmm.
because, well, he's looking for his daughter, but like Ashford is like one of the main guys that really focused on the cloning aspect of everything, which is why a lot of people believe that Wesker is a clone.
Mm. Okay.
And he probably has many more Weskers just in a different form.
See, a lot of these images that they're showing here of 5 and then the twins are memories that I have that I didn't know that I remembered. Like I never could have told you that I remembered those twins. And now that I see the picture, I remember that. I remember that in 5 that they just showed the boss battle. I remember that image. It's weird that I couldn't have told you I remembered this stuff, but I do.
Yeah, like if I brought up the Ashford twins, you'd be like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
But now like the Ashford twins are a key factor to everything that happens in Resident Evil because cloning. Like they were a clone. Like Alexia should sound familiar because Alexia not only is in Code Veronica, but isn't or is it Alexandria or something like that? Like the names are really similar. Like Wesker's little minion that turns into Ouroboros on the boat. Like I forget her name, but I know it's something along Alexandria or something like that.
See,
But Wesker refers to her as a sister, which means they're clones. Which means that Wesker that you killed was a clone. It wasn't Wesker.
okay. Yeah, all this stuff you're saying kind of like it almost rings a bell. Like I'm like, this sounds familiar, but I don't know. Okay, let's keep going.
Where they would be groomed into compliance with Spencer's outlook on the world. If his progenitor virus could prune down mankind into a whole new, superior species, then there would need to be a future generation that carried on his beliefs. Otherwise, there was a risk to the certainty of his vision. These children were to be that foundation if they made it through the selection process. All of the children were given the last name Wesker, after the director of the project. They were provided outstanding educations and opportunities to excel unbeknownst to them. Even when they became young adults, Umbrella continued to monitor them all around the world. Let's talk about one very interesting subject in this project, Albert Wesker. Albert was heavily indoctrinated into Oswald Spencer's propaganda throughout his childhood, but it didn't fully sit well with him. Not because he found it immoral or questionable, but it just wasn't quite the right way of approaching eugenics. It was a source of anxiety and questioning for the young man that followed him as he grew older. In 1977, Albert obtained a degree in bioengineering at only 17 years old and was recruited to work at Umbrella as a researcher. He started out at the Umbrella Executive Training Facility under the supervision of Director James Marcus. There, Albert Wesker met another like-minded young researcher named William Birkin. James Marcus came to trust Albert and William with his research. They were made knowledgeable of the Progenitor Virus. Surprising, as James Marcus viewed the students of the facility with generally disdain and irritation. Albert and William both proved to be brutally committed to their work and highly competitive, but were not given outright access to the progenitor virus. James Marcus reserved that for himself only. In September of 1977, James Marcus made a breakthrough in his research. He combined the progenitor virus with leech DNA, creating a brand new virus base. He took to calling it the T virus, T for tyrant, and within 6 weeks, James Marcus deemed his new T virus ready for human experimentation. He'd worked his way through frogs, insects, monkeys, and rats, but no results were satisfactory. The self-aware, reasoning brain of a man was needed for control to be exerted over them. In fact, it was mandatory. Progress demanded it. He simply could not proceed otherwise, so he began using young students at the training facility for his experiments. Oswell Spencer and James Marcus began to truly turn on one another. The two, once friends, had become overly competitive and distrustful, isolating themselves and keeping vicious secrets regarding their progenitor virus research. By January of 1978, James Marcus was nearly ready to present his T-virus leeches as the future of Umbrella's bioweapons program, usurping leadership of Umbrella away from Oswell Spencer, only for himself. But signs of tampering began to appear around his lab, and then the order came down for the Umbrella training facility to be shut down, citing inquiry into human experimentations taking place there. Young Albert Wesker and his now competitor William Birkin were reassigned to Oswell Spencer's infamous Arklay mansion to work in the secret underground labs there, and they brought with them samples of James Marcus's T-virus. But James Marcus himself refused to leave his private labs at the training facility and chose to stay there alone to continue his work, not knowing that William Birkin and Albert Wesker had taken samples of his T-virus, that they had betrayed his trust. Alone and with little access to external resources, James Marcus's progress greatly slowed, and he just became relegated to his own isolation, ever diligently working on cracking the secrets of his T-virus.
Okay. So let's I was thinking about when to play that Resident Evil 4 animated thing. But let's get to the end of this one and then we'll do it.
Okay. Are you catching on to the connection of, like, how Umbrella is spread out so far? Because everybody took their own path, but they still slated under Umbrella. Pretty much despite Spencer, if that makes sense.
So why'd they spite Spencer? Like what was the problem with him?
And they started distrusting one another. So anytime an outbreak would fall, or anytime, an outbreak would occur where total destruction would happen, it would, like, all the blame would fall on Umbrella and Spencer, and not them.
Okay.
So they could continue doing whatever they're doing without any backlash.
Okay. All right.
In 1981, the Code Veronica clone Alexia Ashford graduated from college at only 10 years old. Her father, Alexander Ashford, had indeed created something from the progenitor virus that was of supreme intellect, and little Alexia Ashford was immediately poached by Umbrella as new talent and given a position as a head researcher at her father's facility in Antarctica.
So she has a thing on her neck here?
And little Alexia...
Is that like a bomb or something, if I remember correctly?
Her father,
Not here, right there. Let me get rid of this. This right here?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm remembering a little bit, but I don't know why. Like, I don't remember what happened before this. Okay.
No, you're good. Like, what happens to some of the characters isn't that big of a deal to the lore. The lore that you're getting in this is the lore of Umbrella, and not the main characters and why. You know what I mean? It's like literally everything that Umbrella became and why the main characters are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And not, like, why is this bomb on her neck? Well, I can almost guarantee if you replay the game, you'll figure out, like, I think she ends up getting knocked down and they put the bomb there, but yeah.
It's just funny that I remember that, and I don't know why.
Alexander Ashford had indeed created something from the Progenitor Virus that was of supreme intellect, and little Alexia Ashford was immediately poached by Umbrella as new talent and given a position as a head researcher at her father's facility in Antarctica. Alexia's achievements and promise were known to William Birkin, who viewed the girl as a rival that he was wholly displeased in having. Birkin was experimenting with incorporating the RNA of Ebola into the T-virus to strengthen its potential as a weapon. Meanwhile, Alexia was creating her own unique experiments with the virus, using insect DNA that had dormant genetic code, not as an outright weapon, but to create evolutionary wonders. She outpaced him in almost every way. She took the title of youngest chief researcher of Umbrella away from him, and she hailed from a powerful family, and he hated it. Little Alexia also had a bit of an outlook problem. She was too young to be respected by her professional peers. She had no friends her own age. No one could relate to the girl except her own twin brother Alfred. And, well, Alexia and her brother had a bit of an unhealthy relationship.
Oh,
Alfred
that's a little
fawned
close
over
right there.
Alexia, and she quite treated him like a servant. She was not a kind girl. She was quite cruel to those around her. She even viewed her own father with disdain. In February of 1982, Alexia and Alfred found their father's secret records room that contained files on how the twins were created. In retaliation for their unnatural lives, Alexia injected her own father, Alexander, with her version of the T-virus that she had created, spliced with an ancient virus within the genes of queen ants. Her father served as her first human experiment of what she called the T. Veronica virus. It turned him into a horrible beast that was locked away deep in the facility. But Alexia believed that she knew how to solve this violent mutation, and she decided that she would use herself as the next experiment. Alexia injected herself with the T. Veronica virus and put herself into cryogenic stasis. By her calculation, she would need 15 years in that state for her body to fully adapt to the T. Veronica virus. In 15 years, she would awaken and her research would continue anew. As Alexia slumbered and adapted, William Birkin and Albert Wesker continued to work on the T-virus, now the puppets of Oswald Spencer, at the Arklay Mansion facility. The virus only had a 90% infection rate, which was unacceptable. William Birkin viewed this as a bioorganic weapon, but Oswald Spencer's intentions were kept elusive, something that fiercely bothered Albert Wesker. He couldn't crack what Oswald wanted with the T-virus. He doubted that Oswald just wanted to monopolize military industries, but he didn't quite have enough data to see the big picture. Regardless, it had to have a 100% infection rate. There could be no immunities within the population, and this issue with the T-virus would stall out their progress for a number of years. By 1988, Oswald Spencer's paranoia of his once friend James Marcus and his research on the T-virus superseding him became too much for Oswald to abide. Oswald was sure that Marcus would solve the T-virus puzzle and supplant him as the leader of the company, so Oswald ordered that James Marcus be assassinated. The Umbrella Security Service raided Marcus's lab and saw him executed. William Birkin and Albert Wesker took the dead man's research and began to integrate his findings into their own studies. James Marcus's corpse and his T-virus experiment, the Queen Leech, were dumped into a pit close together. At this point, besides the problematic 90% infection rate, there were persistent problems with using the T-virus as a bioorganic weapon. Animals and humans used during the experiments became aggressive and powerful, but they weren't intelligent enough to even comprehend basic commands. Their brains degraded too dramatically. They were unusable as weapons. But in an Umbrella facility in France, a possible solution presented: a parasite, referred to as the Nemesis Alpha. The parasite itself was not a weapon, but it could latch on to an infected human's brain and circumvent any damage taking place.
Okay, so in the Resident Evil 3 remake that they did, towards the end of the game, you find containers that Nemesis was shipped from, I believe, from France. So that makes sense that in France, they found that. They bonded it with the T virus and they made Nemesis and then sent him over to
Yes.
Raccoon City.
Now, here's a thing that they're going to talk about, I think, in the next video, but I'm going to shoot it out here real quick. During the time of RE3 Remake, when Jill gets infected with the Nemesis virus, she's knocked out for like 3 days.
Oh.
Like, the time whenever he injects her with the antivirus, and, like, she wakes up later, like, 3 days pass.
Mm-hmm.
So,
When does that happen in the game? I'm trying to remember.
okay, whenever you go to cross the bridge and you fight the mutated Nemesis and he's running around the buildings?
Ah, jeez. We fought him so many times. I'm not remembering.
It's whenever he's, like, in his dog form. And then, like, he runs around the buildings and you take him out and you have to cross over him to go through the little tunnel, and then the gate drops behind you and he hits his tentacle at you and injects
Oh,
you. And then
okay.
Nikolai looks at you and says, "See, I told you should have, left or whatever when you had the chance or
I
what have you."
kind of remembered that. It's his second form. So it's like midway through the game, I guess.
Yeah, about midway through, because I believe he comes back in dog form and runs around the acid bath.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to knock him down and melt him in acid, and then you have his final form. So, yeah.
Okay.
Bring a victim's damaged mind back to moderate intelligence, at least enough that they could understand basic orders. William Birkin theorized that using the T virus and the Nemesis alpha parasite together would yield results, but successful bonding of the parasite to a bioorganic weapon's brain was rare. It had a very, very low success rate. A Nemesis alpha parasite was placed into Lisa Trevor, now 35 years old. Lisa Trevor's body rejected the parasite and proceeded to absorb its genetic material, giving the woman a small degree of intelligence and causing her body to horrifically mutate into something beastly. Now she had regenerative abilities, ghastly strength, dangerous physical mutations, and a form of free thinking back. Torture for the woman. Progress for Umbrella. Samples taken from Lisa led to the discovery of a whole new progenitor virus, the Golgotha virus, or just the G virus. It was found that the G virus was a whole new sort of violent and powerful. It changed the DNA of its host to fulfill whatever needs may arise. It reproduced rapidly, never needs cease evolving, and mutates the body of its host into something lumbering, massive, and nigh unkillable without extreme measures. Though the G virus was not befitting the intentions of Umbrella's military contracts, research into it continued alongside the T virus. That same year, 1988, armed with the knowledge of parasitic host potential working in conjunction with the T virus, the Tyrant project began. Elsewhere, the Queen Leech of James Marcus began to consume parts of his body and take on the form and identity of James Marcus himself, a process that would take years to complete. In Europe, the number 6 Umbrella facility continued.
Real quick, just so you know, this whole thing that they're talking about, this is all before the original run-through of RE1.
Yeah, so this is still back in like...
Because 0 is whenever you fight Marcus, evolved with the Queen Leech. And that hasn't even happened yet.
And that's in the 90s. So now we're still in like the 70s here?
Well, yeah, well, 80s. We're in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, none of Resident Evil has happened yet. Like, this is all build up to the game.
Okay.
research into the intelligent Nemesis Alpha parasites in the Nemesis Project. Then, into the 1990s, Albert Wesker departed Umbrella and entered the U.S. Army, gaining combat training that would later serve him very well. Though he remained closely affiliated with Umbrella and would return to their services, Wesker's ambition would lead him to seek out competitors to Umbrella as a means to steal and study Umbrella's data regarding their viruses and parasites, so that he might surpass Umbrella as a ruling force over the world one day. William Birkin and his new wife Annette were transferred to a brand new Umbrella facility near Raccoon City called The Nest to study the G virus, and in 1993 began meeting with the Raccoon City Police Chief Brian Irons. Brian Irons would become compliant in covering up investigations involving Umbrella's experimentations in and around Raccoon City.
So she's the lady from, Resident Evil 2 remake, that is what I most recently played on the channel. And this cop was the one that had, is it Shirley? Had her in the orphanage?
Sherry.
Yeah, okay. And he ended up getting injected by accident.
Well, what it is he ended up hiding all the information about Umbrella from the police.
Yeah.
So the orphanage was just a cover-up because they were doing tests on children.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's where RE gets kind of dark with doing tests on kids.
Yeah. Yeah, but it doesn't surprise me.
Not with
His allegiance
Umbrella, no.
was an easy purchase, a political stooge who somehow held a seat of power, a malicious idiot with an anger problem. In 1994, the clone Alfred Ashford graduated college and, like his sister Alexia, went to work for Umbrella at the Antarctica facility. Eventually, Alfred Ashford would rise through the ranks of Umbrella to become an executive and a director. Then, in 1996, the Special Tactics and Rescue Service Division, or STARS, was created within the Raccoon City Police Department, and Albert Wesker was the head figure. STARS would be a response team to incidents involving terrorism or large-scale crime situations beyond the handling of the Raccoon City Police Department. Raccoon City had somehow turned into a bit of a hotbed of terror and crime. The creation of STARS would be advantageous. But unbeknownst to its members, their orders were manipulated by Umbrella leadership and the interests of Albert Wesker. All of this compounded into a powder keg of greed, malice, and hubris, which sat ready to ignite. And ignite it certainly did, seemingly all at once, in the year 1998.
Hey,
Ooh.
it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
If you enjoyed this,
So here's the second video. We just finished the first one. This one's 48 minutes. We could most definitely get started on it, but I'm not sure we're going to make it all the way through tonight. But before we do that, I have this one, a little treat for us, especially because I'm playing Resident Evil 4 right now, which I think you will thoroughly enjoy. But real quick before we get started, I'm going to take a 2-minute break here, use the bathroom, and I'll be right back.
Alrighty.
All right. Let me check my camera here.
Welcome back.
So, for anyone watching this, this contains some sexually suggestive content, but I don't think it's any worse than some animes that I've seen. There's no straight nudity, so I don't think it's that bad. If it ends up that YouTube flags it for age restriction or something, I will just edit this part out of the stream and we'll pretend it doesn't exist. So, woohoo, sexual content. A little bit, probably not what you're thinking, but it is. I was laughing when I watched this. So, here we go. That was weird.
Leon S. Kennedy, one of the best secret agents of the USA government, and a survivor to the nightmare of Raccoon City. His mission is to find and rescue the president's daughter. However, he was not ready for the horrors that was waiting for him.
Oh dear God!
Yeah, I'm sure you can
really
see.
Gave her ballistas.
I'm sure you can see where this is going.
Yeah.
I can see her butt.
Ahí está. No dejen que se escape. Te voy a hacer picadillo.
Te lo vamos a aplastar. Yo le voy a tocar la jalea.
Este papucho es mía.
Yo pido a la rubia.
Sodomízalo.
Yo quiero su culo.
And I thought this was
Vamos a
extra
embotar.
fitting since we're playing it right now. Yeah. Shooting one at a time. Slow.
It's so accurate.
Oh, it gets better.
Wow.
Ashley the Terrible.
Look, Leon,
That's what he should have done the whole time.
Right.
He's a doctor.
Help me, Leon!
It's not even sexually suggestive, it's nude suggestive, I suppose.
I hate his chasing them.
Leon. Oh, I see that the president keep his daughter with ballistics too.
How rude! This has nothing to do with my figure or my standing.
Machine gun jubblies.
Sorry.
Lewis! Hunnigan, we are at the extraction point. Where's the chopper? Hunnigan.
Who's a good doggy?
Oh, that's wrong.
He's just watching Ada.
Yeah.
We went through that part already.
Yep.
I hate worms! I hate them!
Holy cow.
Now nobody can get in.
It's like all the ways that she dies and gets Leon killed too.
Yeah, right?
Hmm?
Leon, look!
I got hit by the truck.
Stop it.
Ew! The bugs in this place are huge!
You got killed by the bugs.
Uh-huh. Oh, but she said something funny. Hold on.
What are you gonna do with that thing?
That's what.
Hey, what are you gonna do with that thing?
Get away!
Oh.
Ashley? Where are you?
Yeah, right? She's always ducking down behind you.
Yeah.
You gotta be quiet for the blind guy.
Oh, dear God.
Did that part. Oh.
Oh.
That's probably the
Oh.
most suggestive part.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, we did this. I remember this. Just put an end to it. It's like, woo!
Yep, I did that.
Got rid
I
of
did
her. Ah.
I am so glad that didn't happen.
Leon, I got it.
Oh, it went up his butt.
Oh my God. Oh.
Hmm? Oh, watch his finger.
Come to me, Ashley. Come. Come to me, Ashley. Krauser, where's Ashley?
Do you really want to know? Let me show you something first. Witness the power. Come closer.
Don't worry about me, Leon. Just go.
Ada, wait!
Leon, now!
Is this really the cure, Leon?
Do it again, and again, and
Do not
again.
move from here, Ashley Graham. I will be right back. Mr. Kennedy, you entertain me. Sadler, what's so funny? Oh, I think you know. To show you my appreciation, I will help you awaken from your world of cliché.
Leon, help!
Did she just...
Use this!
Hasta luego.
So, Leon, when we arrive home, do you think you and me could...
No way! Fat.
That's it. Oh, no, that's not it. Oh, no, it's just credits. A lot of credits.
A whole lot of credits.
So that is it. Anyway, I came across that when I was looking for... I was actually looking for like a... I guess like a compilation of some like clips and stuff to play before the stream started. And I came across this one and I was like, this is perfect. We have to watch this. So I will put that
wrong.
I will put that in the description. So yeah, I wish I had more to say about this first video that we just watched, but a lot of that stuff is new to me and I don't know a lot about it. So I think as we get further in, I will have more to say about these videos.
Well, the first one was the initial introduction. It's now getting into the 90s. So seeing how it's getting into the 90s, it's going to get into stuff that you know more about. That's pretty much the history of what all Umbrella has gone through, like Spencer, Birkin, Wesker, Marcus, quit hitting me with your tail, buddy. Ashford and all of them, what they all went through and what they all had to do and had to sacrifice just to start making these viruses to help evolve humanity in their eyes.
Man, so they've been working on this stuff since like, well, I guess
the
Miranda,
1970s.
Yeah, 60s, 70s, and Miranda kind of got a head start on it in the 20s, 30s-ish.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, I say let's get into this one a little bit. I've got a half hour left. If we go over a little bit, it's not going to be the end of the world, but we're not going to make it to the end of this one tonight, but we can continue another day.
If you enjoy this content, please like and comment to feed the algorithm god. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon.
And everybody, the link to this channel and to this playlist is in the description. If you want to check it out for yourself, it's all there.
Something terrible was happening at Arklay Mountain. Reports of people going missing and killings taking place were reaching the Raccoon City Police Department. For years, the Chief of Police, Brian Irons, had assisted in keeping the Umbrella Corporation out of investigations and headlines. But by 1998, the headlines of Raccoon City were all about the grisly deaths. This city was always a bit of a hotbed when it came to illegal activities, but this was a whole new escalation. What could be behind it? Well, at this point, Umbrella founding member and father of the T-Virus, James Marcus, has been dead for nearly a decade, assassinated on the orders of Oswell E. Spencer. But his queen leech has been sucking down that sweet, sweet James Marcus juice in the sewer he was dumped into the entire time, absorbing his DNA, slowly copying him, building its own body, becoming a copy of James Marcus with all of his memories, intellect, and malice intact. The new James Marcus was intent on taking revenge on Umbrella and watching the world burn, so he began using leeches to cause leaks and T-virus infections at the Arklay Mansion lab. By June of 1998, infected dogs were being spotted in the Arklay Mountains. A 20-year-old woman was torn apart, which made it into the news. There were stories of animal and human attacks, and missing person reports were stacking up. Beneath Raccoon City, in the Umbrella Nest facility, research into the G-virus continued under the direction of William Birkin and his wife, Annette.
So the G-virus was the one from Resident Evil 2. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
But the intrigue and fear of what was going on outside Raccoon City limits required a measured response. Umbrella and the Chief of Police couldn't just cover it up or pretend that it wasn't happening. It was just becoming too public. So, X-Day was plotted and schemed. Samples of the valuable T-virus assets would be retrieved and evacuated from the Arklay laboratory, and the facilities would self-destruct to ensure that all evidence and life forms in the area were wiped out. Albert Wesker would be the central figure in executing this plan, and as the order came down for preparations to be made, Wesker began to scheme his own cruel ideas. A STARS group was sent in, the Bravo team, but they were doomed from the start. The head of STARS and supposed Umbrella stooge, Albert Wesker, sabotaged their helicopter, causing it to crash in the Arklay Mountains. On the ground, the Bravo team found the wreckage of a military vehicle that was transporting a supposed criminal named Billy Cohen. Billy was the fall man for a U.S. military operation in Africa that resulted in the execution of 23 locals in a tiny remote African village. Once the murder of the locals was leaked to the press, Billy Cohen was set up as the perpetrator. In actuality, Billy Cohen was there but resisted the order, which came down from his immediate superior. The slaughter of the locals was some sick consolation prize for the outfit, kills to justify their journey and the loss of most of their group during it. The U.S. military's involvement in the area was highly criticized internationally as it was, and this group didn't want to just go back empty-handed. Billy's resistance made him the perfect fall man. The bodies of military personnel were in the wrecked van, but not Billy Cohen himself, raising suspicions that he was responsible for their murders and putting an additional objective onto the list of the STARS Bravo team: find this Billy Cohen and take him into custody.
Okay, so this one, at first I was thinking, I don't remember this from the original game, but this is Resident Evil 0 right here.
Yes, that is correct. And whenever it gets into RE1, pause it and I'll tell you a little bit of side information that you won't know unless you read the books.
Okay. There's books? Or like you
Yeah.
mean the stuff in the game?
No, actual books.
What? Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Hold on. Let me see.
By S.D. Perry.
Let me look this up here. Oh my gosh, look at that.
Yep.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, you have Resident Evil, Caliban Cove, and like you have quite a few of them. I think there's like 6 books, somewhere around there.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to.
They're easy to read books. I mean, I read them when I was in, high school, so they're real easy to read, easy to understand. It tells you the whole thing with Barry Burton in Caliban Cove and why he was doing what he was doing in RE1, and yeah, they go into detail pretty good.
Wow, I'm gonna have to look into that because I had no idea.
Not far off, one of the Bravo team, a young woman named Rebecca Chambers, finds a train completely stopped on the tracks. The Ecliptic Express, an Umbrella Corporation-owned transport en route to the closed-down Umbrella Executive Training School to investigate
Rebecca
perhaps
Chambers?
reopening it.
Working.
Rebecca Chambers is nothing but a high school basketball player and a medic.
Okay.
That's all she is a medic. And with her being a medic, she don't have any field training at all with anything.
Okay. Guns and stuff like that.
Like, she can use them because she's part of STARS, so she had to go through some training, but compared to everybody else, she is the least trained besides Ethan.
Yeah. Yeah, Ethan's just a guy, right?
Yeah, he's just a regular Joe.
But now, on board, are the corpses of Umbrella personnel and shambling victims of the T-Virus. In another move against Umbrella, the new James Marcus attacked the train with his infectious leeches. All were killed or infected, and the Bravo team is at risk for the same happening to them. But Billy Cohen is here as well. And at least for now, the Bravo team member Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen will work together just to make it through this ordeal. The Bravo team is slowly torn apart one by one, leaving Rebecca and Billy to fight for survival together. Albert Wesker, once again in the company of his old chum, William Birkin, dispatches another STARS unit to the Ecliptic Express, the Delta team, and keeps close tabs on their progress. The Delta team gets the train moving once again towards the Umbrella Executive Training School and scout the train for Wesker, relaying information as they go. Wesker and Birkin have no intention of letting the Delta team survive the train ride. No witnesses. No one makes it out. Wesker remotely increases the speed of the train, ensuring that it will either derail or crash at the Umbrella training facility. And to make matters worse, the leeches of James Marcus consume the Delta team before Rebecca Chambers can make contact with them. The train is slowed enough to make the crash into the training facility survivable. The Bravo team leader, Enrico Marini, managed to make it here on his own, and he points Rebecca towards the direction of Oswell Spencer's Arklay mansion. The two Umbrella facilities are connected via an underground tunnel for discreet transport. Enrico begrudgingly leaves her here at the training facility to track down the MIA Billy Cohen, and moves on himself to continue investigating what has been happening in these mountains. The ghouls and ghosties and long-legged beasties that go bump in the night at the Arklay mountain range are playthings compared to the brute that Rebecca meets in the facility. It is designated T-001, the Proto-Tyrant, the first of its kind, an empowered bioorganic weapon. It's lumbering, violent, and stupid.
So that was like the predecessor to the Tyrant in the original game.
One. Yeah.
Okay. And actually, this game came out... Did this game come out before 1?
After. A little bit after 1.
That's what I thought. So...
0 came out on the GameCube. Also.
Yeah. Trying to find it here. I thought it'd be easier to find. Where the hell is it? Wait a second. So Resident Evil was 96. 2 was 98. I don't see 0 on this list. 11, 12, 17. Huh, interesting. That's like the only one that's not on here. Okay. So it must have been like, if 1 was 96, 2 was 98, 3 was 99. So it was about 96, 97, but it was just on a different console.
Give me 1 sec, I'll give you the date. $2002.
Oh,
it came
wow.
out for GameCube in 2002.
2002. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. So 2002, yeah. Okay.
Uncontrollable, a failure, and now a health hazard. The best option in handling the Proto-Tyrant is truly to flee. Reunited and deep within the training facility, Billy Cohen and Rebecca Chambers make contact with the Queen Leech clone of James Marcus, who is truly all too happy to monologue his plans for revenge and domination, and to take the sickly form of a monstrous weapon to kill the two. Billy and Rebecca manage to destroy the Queen Leech of James Marcus and make it out of the training facility before Wesker detonates the self-destruct, taking with it all clues and evidence of what took place here and killing the Proto-Tyrant. Rebecca chooses to believe in Billy Cohen's innocence and decides to release him and officially report him as deceased in her mission. She will continue to the mansion of Oswell E. Spencer alone to search out survivors of any remaining STARS teams.
Okay, now,
with Albert Wesker
what
now in the
happens
lead.
as soon as all that goes down, okay? Rebecca goes to the mansion. If you play as Chris, Rebecca ends up getting trapped in the save room where you get the serum for the snake.
Okay.
And she ends up making her own type of pepper spray because she does know chemistry.
Okay.
And seeing how she knows some chemistry through her medic, experience, she makes her own pepper spray, praying it would work on a zombie. Well, when Chris breaks through the door, she sprays Chris with the pepper spray. And, like, before Alpha Team shows up, Jill gets a phone call from a man named Trent. Trent used to work for Umbrella. Trent lets Jill know what all is going on at Arklay Mansion, which is why Jill isn't really surprised, but kind of shocked at what she's seeing, but not shocked at what's going on. You know what I mean?
So,
because Trent filled her in on everything.
When did that happen? Is that in a game or is that just
It's in the books.
Okay. Man, I got to read these books.
Yeah, definitely. The books are really good.
Another STARS team was assembled, the Alpha Team. They would travel through the mountains via the air, search out the missing Bravo team, and investigate their findings. This absolutely could not be allowed, of course. So the final stage of the contingency plan called X-Day began. X-Day was an order to scrub the Arklay Mountains of incriminating evidence in regards to what was taking place there. And what had happened at the Umbrella Executive Training Facility the night before was absolutely proof that the main Arklay mansion needed to be destroyed. Samples were to be collected of the T-Virus and the mansion's self-destruct sequence activated, eliminating all STARS members, Umbrella's staff on site, and bioorganic weapons loose on the grounds. And though the loss of this facility would be unfortunate for Umbrella, there was a silver lining. They would be able to obtain combat data on how trained soldiers fared against their current bioorganic weapons. So, some good could be salvaged from all of this. Good for Umbrella. I mean, extremely unfortunate for the STARS members, though. Before the Alpha Team disembarked for their mission, William Birkin injected Albert Wesker with a version of the T-Virus that would give him greater chances at survival. Should something happen to Wesker that could end his life, the T-Virus might be enough to strengthen and heal him so that he could make it through the mission. Wesker also threatened a member of the STARS Alpha Team named Barry Burton, specifically his family. He commanded Barry to assist him in getting rid of evidence in the mansion, or he would see that his entire family was killed. Barry felt that he had no option but to agree. And just like the Bravo team, things went to hell for the Alpha Team almost as soon as they were on the ground. One of their team was attacked and consumed by infected hounds, sending the team fleeing into the Arklay mansion. Now, this place was designed by George Trevor to be full of puzzles and traps, perhaps not meant to be used as lethally as they eventually were, but this isn't a place where the STARS members can just frolic about. And now, it's also occupied by infected Umbrella personnel that are just jonesing for some human rump roast. Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, Barry Burton, and the Bravo team survivors, Rebecca Chambers and Enrico Marini, will have to push their way through the mansion just to discover what on earth took place here, and then find a way out. Not knowing that their own leader, Albert Wesker, has no intention of letting any of that happen, at least not if he can interfere. Most of what took place here comes from the point of view of one Jill Valentine. The STARS soldier was able to solve the mysteries of the mansion with minor interventions from the blackmailed Barry Burton, who truly did not wish harm upon Miss Valentine, but did eventually take actions that put her at risk. He had to impede her progress and destroy evidence alongside Albert Wesker. The Bravo team leader, Enrico Marini, discovered that someone within STARS was a turncoat, a traitor working for Umbrella. But before he could tell Jill Valentine all he knew of the situation, Albert Wesker
was shot.
murdered him.
Bam.
Ms. Valentine even found the adult Lisa Trevor, the first of the Umbrella experiments and host of the G-Virus. And while not able to defeat the poor Lisa Trevor, the STARS team was at least able to remove her from their path forward. Over the course of the night, glimpses of the truth as to what Umbrella has done here were made known. Enough information that it could absolutely ruin the corporation. The heart of the mansion, the underground labs, held the most frightening of secrets, another tyrant, the T-002. Unlike the T-001 at the training facility that Rebecca and Billy encountered, this tyrant is moderately intelligent, a far more dangerous bioorganic weapon than its predecessor. Albert Wesker has already taken samples. Everything has worked out in his favor thus far.
Except if you have the rocket launcher, it takes 4 shots. Is that right? I can't remember now.
Yeah, like, the rocket launcher you get at the end of the game takes him out quick, but if you kill Tyrant with the combat knife on the initial, like, this part right here that you're looking at,
Yeah.
if you kill Tyrant with the combat knife and get all the MO discs, save Chris, kill him with the combat knife, the original combat knife that you get, because the other one don't hurt him. The one that cuts down the webs, that combat knife don't hurt him, but the original one does. If you take him out with the combat knife, beat the game in under 2 hours, get all the MO discs, rescue Chris, you do not have to fight Tyrant the second time.
Really?
Instead, he walks off into the woods after the building explodes.
You know, I think I remember hearing that, but I've never done it myself.
I've done it once, and that was in the OG. I haven't done it in the remake.
I remember playing the original one on PlayStation 1 and then finishing it in under 3 hours, I believe, and then you get the rocket launcher with unlimited ammo.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember doing that.
Now, it is my belief that T-002 is none other than John Wong.
Who's that?
Ada Wong's husband.
Oh, Wong. Okay. Huh.
Because if you look in the files, the password for the one file is John, and the password for the other file is Ada.
Oh.
And he talks about, how much he cares about her, and he's sorry, but he's never going to be able to escape, and he's been injected, and they're running tests on him, and everything else. And then you come up to T-002, which, in my belief, is John Wong.
Well, yeah, and then the G-Virus one in Resident Evil 2 was
William Birkin.
William Birkin. Okay, that's what I was going to say, but then I thought that doesn't sound right. Yeah, so that's the lady. What's her name? I forget again. I'm bad with names. Annette? Yeah, that's her husband.
His wife? Yeah.
Okay.
And whenever the self-destruct sequence goes off and you're about ready to go to the rooftop to fight Tyrant, before you get on the elevator, you hear someone scream.
Yeah, if you
the person screaming is Wesker trying to get out of the engine room, the generator room area, and a ceiling creature swoops down and impales him. And that's the scream that you hear. And that's how he gets the other virus in him.
Really?
To make it more potent in his body, yes.
I was going to say, if you hear the scream and you go back, do you find something? Or not?
That I'm aware. Like, you can't go back. You're on a strict time limit at that point. You have to get out.
Okay.
Because he sets off the self-destruct sequence, and you're trying to get out. And you have to wait for the elevator and everything else. And whenever there's like 1 minute left, he screams. So going back, that would take 2 to 3 minutes. Like, you would die.
Okay.
The last task is to see the mansion completely wiped out. But Jill Valentine and Barry Burton stand as obstacles. So, Wesker releases the T-002, expecting the bioorganic weapon to attack the STARS members, but it is not so inclined to be picky about its target. Wesker should be thankful for his T-virus injection from William Birkin. The T-002 handles Wesker first, an apparent lethal strike, and then it turns its attention upon Barry, and more specifically, Jill Valentine. During the first fray with the Tyrant, Wesker recovered enough to slip away from the fight unnoticed. The healing properties of the T-virus truly did save his life, and while Jill and Barry fumbled their way through the underground lab trying to find Chris Redfield and a way out, Wesker activates the self-destruct of the building. This does unlock their way out, but time just became an extremely limiting factor. They could just leave Chris Redfield behind, but he might be important to the story later, so probably best to save him, right? The trio finally make it topside to an area that their helicopter pilot can receive.
Man, Chris looks different. They changed him so many times. Like, look at him here. That doesn't look like any other Chris from any other game.
Probably best to save him.
Yeah, he gets beefed up in the later games. Like, beefed up. Especially in 5.
And especially in Village. I guess he kind of maybe almost resembles Chris in 7, but still not really. He has like blonde hair, I think, or at least lighter hair.
Yeah, but weather and climate can do that. Like, some people's hair gets darker in the wintertime and lighter in the summer, and aging has that effect too.
Yeah.
Trio finally make it topside to an area that their helicopter pilot can receive them. The T-002 rears his ugly head and naked booty once more before the STARS team can be lifted out, intent on killing everything that it comes across. It takes a direct hit from a rocket launcher to stop the weapon, at least long enough for the STARS team to evacuate. That horrible mansion and everything still within is destroyed. all personnel, infected or not. Lisa Trevor, the Tyrant, data and records, samples, all of it gone. The survivors of this night, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Rebecca Chambers, Chris Redfield, and Brad Vickers, will rarely know a moment of peace in whatever remains of their lives. They were not intended to make it through this night, and their continued existence is a complication to Umbrella's cover-up. After the mansion incident, within a few days actually, at the end of the month of July, another T-virus infection event got underway beneath Raccoon City in the Umbrella facility called The Nest, which was headed by the once friend of Albert Wesker, William Birkin. You see, for a while,
one thing
William Birkin had
that I want to point out, because a lot of RE fans think, 1, 2, 1 and 2 are, like, far apart in the timeline. And they're not. They're really, really close. And 2 and 3 are just, like, 20, 30 minutes apart from each other, maybe an hour difference between 2 and 3. And it's only a couple days between 1 and 2.
She said
within a few days, actually.
Within a few days,
at the
yeah.
end of the month of
Okay.
July,
Yeah.
another T-virus infection event got
So also 0 happened. Is it the same time as 1 or just like barely before?
It's barely before, because Rebecca goes into the mansion to do some exploring, and then Bravo team shows up. And if you play as Chris, you run into Rebecca in that storage room I told you about.
Oh.
So, like, all of this happens, like 0, 1, 2, 3, they all happen really, really, like, within a week.
I was gonna say within the same week, yeah.
Yeah, like, it's insane.
And
And the
then
explosion that happens in Raccoon City in 2 is the exact same explosion that happens in 3.
Yeah, so those are going on at the same time, basically.
At pretty much the exact same time, because in 2, the cop is infected. In 3, he's not infected yet. So Jill gets to the police station in 3 before Claire and Leon get to the police station in 2. Like,
Interesting.
within 30 minutes. Yeah.
I want to go back and play them again now and pay closer attention to that.
underway beneath Raccoon City in the Umbrella facility called The Nest, which was headed by the once friend of Albert Wesker, William Birkin. You see, for a while, William Birkin had been making some odd choices in regards to the safety measures of his research. On-site staff were given antivirals to protect them from the T-virus, but Birkin began performing his experiments at such a rate that the waste processing plant near the Nest couldn't keep up with the demand. It was a special process to completely get rid of the infected bodies. The T-virus began to mutate within the corpses, making the antivirals useless. And then staff began to show signs of slow onset infection. And while this wasn't an immediate outbreak, it turned Raccoon City into an outbreak time bomb. After his betrayal, Albert Wesker began working with a group simply called the Organization. While not an employee per se, but rather an associate of the mysterious group, their intel and resources would provide Wesker with everything he needed to track down locations of various progenitor, not an
Hold on,
employee
what did that
per
say?
se, but rather an associate
Right.
of the mysterious group.
Umbrella Corporation, commitment, honesty, integrity. These are the core values that create the foundation of Umbrella Corp.
Our
Yeah, sure.
business is life itself.
Yeah, really.
Their intel and resources would provide Wesker with everything he needed to track down locations of various progenitor virus experiments taking place around the world. His T-virus infection would make him more than human, yes, but it wasn't the apparent godhood that he so craved. He didn't have the right formula that would pave the way for a true human evolutionary event. As time went on, the T-virus would become more difficult for his body to adapt to, more unstable. He would eventually require booster shots to keep it under control, to keep him from turning into something monstrous. In August of 1998, the STARS team was completely disbanded by Police Chief Brian Irons, that stooge for Umbrella. Brian Irons was under immense pressure from William Birkin to cover up the sporadic infections happening due to water and soil contamination from the overrunning waste processing plant. And Umbrella was breathing down his neck to cover up any investigations into what happened in the Arklay Mountains. No one believed the claims of Jill, Chris, and Barry about what happened there, but even with the Stars disbanded, the team did not give up on their search for answers. Chris Redfield departed for Europe to explore leads into Umbrella facilities there. Barry Burton got his family moved to Canada so that he could pursue leads without fearing for their safety. And Jill Valentine remained in Raccoon City to investigate Umbrella and rumors of a facility beneath the city. Speaking of which, like we discussed before, studies into the G virus continued beneath the city in the Nest, overseen by William Birkin and his wife Annette. In the aftermath of the mansion incident, William made strides in his research with the G virus, nearly finalizing his work, and made an interesting choice regarding his research. He decided that rather than turn the G virus over to Umbrella, he would instead sell it to the U.S. military.
And the U.S. Say?
Interesting choice regarding his research. Umbrella, he would instead sell it.
There we go. This is what I was talking about. Cartridge for bioweapon, codename Nemesis. And it said somewhere in the game that I think it came from France.
To the U.S. military. And the U.S. military was all too willing to accept his offer. Umbrella had for years received funding from the U.S. military on their bioweapons projects.
You find that case later in the game, though.
Developing. They knew it violated international law regarding
this is
the
where
development
Jill's
of
waking up in 3. Yeah.
Yes.
Birkin's decision to do this was surprising, given how many employees had been killed on the job at Umbrella and how well the corporation was connected to, well, everything. But I guess having a PhD and a fancy lab coat doesn't mean
Wait, is that Tricell logo?
And
right here? I don't know if I can go really slow.
How the corporation was
Yes, that is the Tricell logo.
Okay, that's cool.
Connected to, well, everything. But I guess having a PhD and a fancy lab coat doesn't mean you have common sense, does it? Into the month of September, T-virus infections continued to occur within Raccoon City. Hospitals and clinics were at capacity or had to turn sick people away. This slow-moving version of the mutated T-virus provided days and weeks for terror and uncertainty to build within the city before reports of attacks, murders, and cannibalism began to surface. On September 22nd of 1998, William Birkin's scheme was sniffed out. Of course, Umbrella had connections within the military that would snitch on a traitor. Stupid
and this is happening in
that
2.
This wouldn't happen. The Umbrella Security Service was sent into the Nest, tasked with taking Birkin in alive and taking control of his G-virus. Birkin put samples of the T and G-virus into a case and made his move to leave the Nest, only to be confronted by the Umbrella Security Service. Birkin was gunned down and the samples retrieved, but the USS team didn't search him before departing or ensure that he was actually dead.
Oh, did she say he actually injected himself? Was it right before that, I think? Right before he got shot?
No, he got shot, then he injected himself.
Okay, yeah, so he's not actually dead, and then he injects himself. Okay.
William Birkin kept a dose of the G-virus on himself as a backup plan should things go wrong. Enraged by his plan being ruined, and that he was cast aside, William Birkin injected himself with the G-virus.
There you go.
To the absolute horror of his wife Annette, William Birkin's change was rapid. He became a towering, nigh unstoppable infected monstrosity, and he chased down the USS team. In the mayhem of his attack, the case holding the virus sample opened, and a vial of pure T-virus spilled out. A couple little rats started slurping up that sweet virus juice. I bet it tasted like cherry. And can you guess what happened next? Or I suppose the better question would be, can you guess how long it took? The infection spread amongst the rats in the city, causing them to mutate and bloat and spread it rapidly in their nests. The rat waste and corpses got into the Raccoon City water supply, and within 5 days, Raccoon City fell into complete, all-consuming infection.
1 week from the first game. all of Raccoon City was infected. 1 week.
Dang.
Jill Valentine was haunted by nightmares of the T-Virus. She coped as best as she could with the memories of Arklay Mansion, threw herself into her investigation and her research. She was a woman of iron who refused to give up. And when sickness began to fall upon the city, she didn't flee. She continued her search. There's no way that Jill could have known what was coming for her. How could she? How could anyone know that Umbrella dropped multiple Tyrant 103 series bioweapons in the city? This is the Nemesis Tyrant, a highly aggressive T-103 with a Nemesis Alpha parasite embedded into it. Its sole mission is to hunt and kill any former STARS member still within the city.
Okay, anybody following along? This had the parasite bonded with the T-Virus to create this guy. The parasite that they were talking about in the first video before this.
Yeah, the G-Virus parasite bonded with the T-Virus.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
To ensure that they do not make it out alive. And the only two in the city are Jill Valentine and the pilot, Brad Vickers. Brad doesn't make it very far. He's infected during their escape attempt, leaving Jill Valentine the only target of this bioweapon. Thankfully, while able to follow orders and comprehend commands, the Nemesis is not exquisitely intelligent, and Jill is able to give it the slip. This is the only option that she has now. Run. It cannot be killed, and the city is falling so fast that if Nemesis doesn't claim her, then the zombie hordes will. Deeper into the city, Jill meets with the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, or the UBCS. The UBCS was deployed as 4 full platoons. They were meant to help contain and stop the spread of the virus, but no one really knew just how quickly the spread would happen, and the contamination of Raccoon City's water wasn't known to the authorities, leading to infection within the UBCS groups as well. The UBCS went from 4 full platoons to just 4 men in less than 2 days in Raccoon City. There are survivors on the subway, and it's a way out of the situation. It just needs power and repairs, a process that Jill Valentine will aid them in. But things around here will only go from bad to worse. While these men are not its targets, the Nemesis will absolutely tear them apart to reach Jill Valentine. To flee the area, the UBCS soldiers need time to get the subway system going again, so Jill will act as bait to lure the Nemesis away from the UBCS soldiers so that they can prepare the subway. Looping about and returning here is her ultimate goal, which takes her through a disgusting, infested sewer, all the way up to the surface of a construction zone where the Nemesis itself intercepts her for a grand chase up a building into a spectacle of flame and violence at the rooftop. All of this is just a measure to just stop the Nemesis for a moment, to buy enough time to get the hell away from it, and you might be expectant that something that grand would be overkill, a massive explosion that took out a rooftop. But no, not by a long shot. These weapons are nigh unkillable, extremely destructive forces, and after all these decades of research and experimentation, Umbrella has cracked some sort of code with the Tyrants. Get used to it. That's what's going on in the city right now. This is the gift that Umbrella will give to the world. The pursuit will continue all across this district of Raccoon City. The entirety of this has just been giving the UBCS a fighting chance to get the damned subway system active, which, thank God, they actually got it done in time. 2 of its members, Carlos and Tyrell, have new orders to track down the vaccine research of a man named Nathaniel Bard, which will first take them to the Raccoon City Police Department to search out leads. But the subway's departure was just a little bit too late. The Nemesis is here. It attacks the subway, something most fortuitous for one of the UBCS members, Nikolai Zinoviev, a two-faced jackal who's working alongside Umbrella and one of its unnamed competitors to make as much money off the situation as possible. He locks his commander and Jill Valentine out of a retreat to be torn apart by the Nemesis. The captain of this platoon, an older man named Mikhail Victor, is having none of this, though. In the grips of the Nemesis, the man detonates enough C4 to knock the Nemesis off the train, cause a huge wreck, and give Jill Valentine enough time to put space between herself and the encroaching beast. UBCS members Carlos and Tyrell were moderately successful in tracking down information on Nathaniel Bard and his vaccine research in the Raccoon City Police Department. But upon hearing of the train's derailment from Jill Valentine, the man named Carlos departs from Tyrell to assist her within the city. Very noble, except Carlos won't be able to help Jill in time, at least not with this. The Nemesis is evolving over the night to become what it needs in order to complete its mission. It's almost completely lost all human semblance and is a rampaging beast in this new arena. While Jill is able to deliver it grievous harm, there's no shielding
he
from
gets her
what the
through right
Nemesis
there.
Can do now. It infects Jill with a strain of the T-virus. While the infection is immediate, the effects are delayed. She won't change immediately, but Jill is extremely ill, and it's only a matter of time before she too becomes a shambling horror. The UBCS soldier Carlos finds her and takes her to the Spencer Memorial Hospital, where the man Nathaniel Bard was working in an Umbrella-funded lab to create an antivirus treatment and a vaccine. There is one single dose available, which Bard was trying to use as a ticket out of the city once the T-virus was loose. Seems there's a number of U.S. senators that were well aware of what was taking place in the city, and I wonder if there will be any consequences for them. Oh, sorry. That's funny, isn't it? Sorry. Carlos is able to track down the dose and discover the truth of what Umbrella had done in the city, and their intention to cover their tracks, destroy the city and the cure along with it.
Hit pause real quick. Did you get that joke?
I don't remember what happened to them.
There's a lot of senators that had secrets, and she wonders if any of the consequences will go to them.
Mm-hmm.
This is RE3. What game's next? RE4, the kidnapping of a president's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Karma.
And then in the previous short video, we saw what happened with her.
Yeah, all sorts of tentacle stuff.
Yep.
Delivers this single cure to Jill Valentine, and remarkably, it is the real deal. An emergency broadcast begins to play all around Raccoon City. A notice that on October 1st, in about 3 days' time, the city will be bombed into oblivion.
Right there.
All people still capable
3 days' time.
have until then
Oh,
to
yeah.
evacuate the city. Carlos and Tyrell will stand guard over the area, search for more of the vaccine, try to stall for time with the U.S. military, and wait for Jill to awaken so that she might leave the city with them.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And
I think
that's where it's going to lead into her talking about Jill waking up 3 days later because she only has, like 2 to 3 hours to get out of the city?
Yeah, pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to leave it here for tonight. But there's a lot of information in here, and it's all coming at you pretty fast. And if you're not somewhat familiar with this, I feel like it's going to be hard to comprehend. This part I am pretty familiar with, so I'm picking it up pretty well.
Yeah, and if there's any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment with the question, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. Or, if we end up getting, more people in the chat and they're curious about what's going on, I can definitely give answers. So don't hesitate to ask questions about it, because I'm pretty familiar with most of the lore.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that the people from the Resident Evil 4 streams didn't show up, because some of them wanted to watch this last night. So yeah, so awesome. Yeah, we'll leave it here for tonight. A lot of good information here. I'm excited to get through the rest of these. So we're like directly in the middle of this. We're at 25, and this is 48 minutes. The next one's an hour, and then a half hour, and then 45 minutes. So I was thinking about if we should continue this tomorrow, but I kind of think that I should continue with RE4 while people are still interested in it. tomorrow, and then we can get back to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could get back to this. Let's see. Tomorrow's Monday. I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday or something.
Because I think you have about 1 or 2 more streams of RE4 before you're done with it.
Okay. Well, in that
Depending
case,
on how lost you get or how quick you go through Military Island, because at the end of Military Island is the boss.
in that
And
case,
you have to fight Douchebag, the Marine buddy of yours.
yeah, I just saw him last time. I don't know who he is
Krauser.
though. Yeah. Yeah. In that case, then maybe I'll do. I'll finish up 4, and then we'll come back to this, and maybe we can let more people know about this and get more people in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm gonna go to bed now so that I'm not too tired for tomorrow, so that we can do that. Resident Evil 4. So yeah, this is pretty cool. I'm interested in it, but I'm also I'm finding that I'm very tired, and I'm kind of like losing focus a little bit as she's talking. She's talking pretty fast too.
Yeah,
So-
she's trying to get a lot of information out at one time. And I mean, that's kind of the way the movies operate. Like, they're trying to get all this information in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And all this information you cannot fit into 2 hours. Like, it's really difficult to fit all the information in.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm gonna let you go, and then I'm gonna wrap this up, and then if everything goes according to plan, I'll be back with Resident Evil 4 tomorrow around 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Alrighty, sounds like a plan.
Give or take a couple minutes or so, but yeah, cool. Sounds good. This is fun. I like doing stuff like the scary videos one is like the first time that I've been live without having a game in front of me. So this kind of stuff is new to me, and I like doing it. I gotta keep doing it and then get better at it, and then I'll have more to say, and it'll be a more interesting conversation. Yeah, I wish more people would have showed up, and then we'd be able to maybe get some of them in the Discord too. And I wanted to have more in-depth conversations with a bunch of people. I thought that'd be really fun. But maybe they'll come in later. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to let you go here, and I'm going to say goodbye to the stream, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Alrighty, sounds like a plan.
All right, see you later.
Later.
All right, you guys, that is going to be it for tonight. I have to go to my job in the morning, so I have to leave this one here. This is bright on my face. Let's see. Let's put some save room music up here. Yeah. This is RE2 save room. RE1 remake. There we go. A little more familiar to me. Yeah, so this is fun for me. Now that we're getting into when the games actually took place, I can follow it better. The stuff in the first video, a lot of it I had never heard before, and there were a lot of names in there, and it was a little bit harder for me to follow, but now I'm going to be able to do a better job of understanding and providing, some commentary on it. So, yeah, tomorrow, Monday, the 17th, we'll be going back to Resident Evil 4. I'm about, I can't remember now. I think I'm a little over 10 hours into it, and we'll go live around 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time if you want to check that out. I do have a private Satisfactory server. If you'd like to join, all you have to do is go to the link in the description for my Patreon. Become a Patreon for $5 a month. You get unlimited access to the server and to my private Discord chat that we use while we're playing. You can join the regular Discord for free, but if you do become a Patreon, make sure you send me a message on Discord and let me know so we can get you hooked up with all the server information and get you playing as soon as possible. So yeah, make sure you have your notifications turned on so you get notified when I go live and you don't miss anything. That way you can join us tomorrow for Resident Evil 4. There's been a lot of people showing up for the stream. Actually, the second stream and the last one that we did, there were more people in stream than I've ever had before. People are chatting faster than I can read them all, so Umbrelladoc is in there too to help provide commentary on the game and stuff, and then also to help me interact with chat. So it's a good time. Please come and check it out. Turn your notifications on, and come hang out with us. So thanks again for coming to hang out with us today. I really do appreciate it. Make sure if you have any questions, go and put them in the comments. And I know Umbrelladoc going to be able to answer it for you, and then I'll see if I know what you're talking about. Thanks again for coming to hang out with us today. I really do appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Later, guys.